The great hall of Harmony Prime Station glittered with 1,000 lights. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the massive chamber, their voices creating a symphony of strange languages and sounds. At the center of it all, on a throne made of crystalline material that seemed to glow from within, sat Princess Nara of the Vathir Empire. She looked beautiful, as all Vathir did. Her skin had a faint blue tint that shimmered under the lights. Her eyes were large and golden, filled with an intelligence that most people missed because they were too busy staring at her wings. 4 wings extended from her back, each one normally a symbol of Vathir royalty. But 2 of Nara's wings were broken. They hung limp and dull, their crystalline surface cracked and lifeless. She had been born this way, and in her culture it made her worthless. The bonding ceremony had been going on for 3 hours now. One by one, suitors and diplomatic representatives approached the throne. Each one performed the required greeting, looked at Princess Nara with thinly disguised disgust or pity, and then found an excuse to leave. The Kelvin ambassador had been first. He was tall and proud with silver scales covering his body. He took one look at Nara's damaged wings and claimed that their neural pathways were not compatible for bonding. Everyone knew it was a lie. Next came the Draxian prince, a warrior from a culture that valued strength above all else. He actually laughed when he saw her wings. He said he had suddenly remembered prior obligations back home and left without even completing the greeting ritual. The Yohari delegate did not bother with excuses. She simply looked at Nara, shook her head, and walked away. With each rejection, Nara felt a small piece of her heart break. But she kept her face calm and expressionless. She had learned long ago not to show her pain. Her father, Emperor Kale, sat on a larger throne beside her. His 4 wings were perfect, each one spreading wide to show his power and status. He watched the ceremony with barely hidden shame. His daughter was embarrassing him in front of the entire galaxy. Standing in the shadows near the back of the hall was Nara's sister, Princess Hana. She was everything Nara was not. Her wings were flawless, spreading wide and catching the light with every small movement. Her smile was cruel as she watched her sister being rejected over and over again. Hana had never wanted Nara to find a bond partner. A successful bonding would give Nara political power, and Hana wanted to be the only princess who mattered. The ceremony was almost over. Only a few representatives remained, and most of them were already heading toward the exits. Nara felt hollow inside. She had known this would happen, but hoping had been a mistake. Hope always led to pain. Then the main doors of the hall burst open. A human stumbled in, and every head turned to look. Captain Jiwan Park of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet looked like he had been through hell. His uniform was torn and covered in black soot. There was a cut above his left eye that still bled slightly. His dark hair was a mess, and he was breathing hard like he had been running. He looked around the hall with confusion, clearly not understanding what was happening. Ambassador Minho Kim, another human who served as Earth's main diplomat, rushed forward to intercept him. The 2 men spoke in quick, hushed tones. Minho looked worried and kept glancing at the throne where Nara sat. Jiwan's eyes followed his gesture and landed on the princess for the first time. Nara expected the same reaction she had gotten from everyone else. Humans were new to galactic politics. They had only made contact with other species 20 years ago. Most aliens considered them primitive and weak. Surely this human would see her broken wings and turn away like all the others. But Jiwan did not look away. His eyes met hers, and something passed between them. Not pity, not disgust, just recognition. Then he looked at her wings, and his expression did not change at all. He seemed to be thinking about something, his brow furrowed in concentration. Finally he nodded to himself as if he had made a decision. Ambassador Minho grabbed his arm and whispered urgently. Jiwan shook his head and gently pulled free. He started walking toward the throne. The crowd parted for him, aliens stepping back with expressions of curiosity and confusion. Humans were barely known in this part of space. What was this dirty, exhausted soldier doing? Emperor Kale leaned forward on his throne, his wings spreading wider in a display of dominance. Several guards moved closer, hands on their weapons, but Jiwan kept walking until he stood at the base of the steps leading up to Nara's throne. Up close, Nara could see that he was young, probably in his late 20s. His face was kind despite the exhaustion and pain written across it. There were scars on his hands, the kind that came from years of hard work and fighting. Jiwan looked up at her, and then he did something that shocked everyone in the hall. He dropped to one knee, not in the alien style of the other suitors, but in a human gesture of respect. He placed his right fist over his heart and bowed his head slightly. When he looked up again, his voice was clear and strong, carrying through the now silent chamber. "Your Highness," he said in slightly accented but understandable Galactic Common, "my name is Captain G1 Park of Earth. I have heard stories about you. They say you designed the Vathir defensive network that protected 6 billion lives during the Outer Rim crisis. They say you are the greatest strategic mind of your generation. I would be honored if you would consider my request." Nara felt her heart beat faster. No one had ever mentioned her accomplishments before. They only saw her wings. She found her voice, though it came out softer than she intended. "What request?" G1 smiled then, and it transformed his face. It was a genuine smile, warm and without any trace of pity or mockery. "Will you bond with me?" The hall erupted in chaos. Aliens shouted in a dozen languages. Princess Hana's face went pale with shock and then red with rage. Emperor Kale stood from his throne, his wings flaring wide in anger or surprise or both. Ambassador Minho covered his face with his hands, clearly thinking his captain had just made a terrible mistake. But Nara heard none of it. She stared at this human who had crashed into the ceremony covered in soot and blood, who had knelt before her without hesitation, who had asked her the question that dozens of others had refused to ask. She searched his face for any sign of deception or cruelty. She found none. Her voice was steady when she spoke, loud enough for the entire hall to hear. "I accept." The chaos grew louder, but Nara did not care. For the first time in her life, someone had chosen her, not despite her broken wings, but without even caring about them at all. The human had seen her, truly seen her, and he had still asked. As the ceremonial officials rushed forward to begin the bonding ritual, Nara allowed herself something she had not felt in years. Hope. The bonding chamber was much smaller than the Great Hall, but somehow that made everything feel more intense. Ancient Vathir symbols covered the walls, glowing with soft blue light. In the center of the room stood a circular platform, made of the same crystalline material as the thrones. Nara and G1 stood facing each other on this platform, while the ceremonial elder began chanting in Old Vathir. Nara could still hear the shouting from outside. Her father was arguing with his advisors. Princess Hana was demanding they stop the ceremony. But once a bonding was accepted by both parties, galactic law was clear. It could not be stopped unless one of them withdrew their consent. Neither Nara nor G1 showed any sign of backing down. The elder, an ancient Vathir named Keeper Yuna, moved between them with careful steps. Her 4 wings were silver with age, and her eyes held the wisdom of centuries. She had performed thousands of bonding ceremonies, but even she looked surprised by this pairing. A Vathir princess and a human. It had never happened before. "Do you understand what you are doing?" Keeper Yuna asked them both, her voice soft but serious. "This is not like your human marriages, Captain Park. A Vathir bond connects your minds, your emotions, your very souls. You will feel what she feels. Her pain will be your pain. Her joy will be your joy, and it cannot be broken except by death." G1 nodded without hesitation. "I understand." The keeper turned to Nara. "And you, Princess? Are you certain? This human is not of our kind. The bond may feel different, stronger, more unpredictable." Nara met G1's eyes. In them she saw determination and kindness, but also deep sadness. This man had suffered, she realized. He understood pain. "I am certain," she said. Keeper Yuna sighed, but continued the ritual. She took Nara's hand and placed it palm up, then did the same with G1's, pressing their hands together. The moment their skin touched, Nara felt a small spark of energy. G1's eyes widened slightly. He felt it too. The elder began the true chant, words that were older than most civilizations in the galaxy. The symbols on the walls glowed brighter. The energy between their joined hands grew stronger, warmer until it felt like holding on to sunlight. Then suddenly the world shifted. Nara gasped as memories that were not hers flooded into her mind. She saw a city on Earth, tall buildings made of glass and metal, soul her mind supplied, though she had never been there. She saw a young boy playing in a park with his family. His mother was laughing. His father was teaching him to kick a ball. His little sister was chasing butterflies. The memory was full of warmth and love. Then the memory changed. Alien ships appeared in the sky. Not Vathir ships. These belonged to raiders. pirates who preyed on developing worlds. Fire rained down from the heavens. The boy was running, his hand clutched in his mother's grip. Explosions, screaming. His mother pushed him into a shelter, told him to hide. He watched through a crack as the raiders killed his family. All of them. He was 10 years old, and in one day he lost everything. More memories came faster now. The boy growing up in refugee camps, learning to fight because fighting was the only way to protect others, joining Earth's newly formed military, rising through the ranks not because he wanted power, but because he wanted to make sure no other child lost their family the way he did. Mission after mission, saving lives, losing friends, never stopping, never giving up. And underneath all the memories, Nara felt his emotions, the grief that never fully healed, the determination that burned like a star in his chest, the loneliness of being a soldier who could never really go home because home was gone, but also, surprisingly, hope. Despite everything, Jiwon still believed things could get better. He still believed in protecting others. Nara realized tears were running down her face. She had never felt anything like this. The bond was showing her who this human truly was, and he was beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with physical appearance. But the bond worked both ways. Even as she experienced Jiwon's memories, he was experiencing hers. Jiwon's hand tightened around hers as he saw her childhood. A young Nara, excited to be alive, playing in the crystal gardens of the Vathir Palace. Then the day her parents realized her wings would never develop properly. The doctors explaining that it was a genetic defect, rare and incurable. Her father's disappointment. Her mother's tears, not of sadness for Nara, but of shame for herself for producing an imperfect child. Growing up as the broken princess. Other children mocking her. Teachers giving up on her because they assumed she was as damaged mentally as she was physically. Her sister Hana, always perfect, always cruel, pushing her down and laughing at her broken wings. Assassination attempts not from foreign enemies, but from members of her own court who wanted to remove the embarrassment she represented. The loneliness of being surrounded by people but utterly alone. The way she threw herself into studying strategy and technology because her mind was the only thing they could not call broken, proving her worth over and over again, designing the defensive network, saving billions of lives and still being called worthless because of her wings. The bond showed Jiwon all of it. Her pain, her rage, her desperate need to be seen as more than her disability, and underneath it all a tiny flame of hope that refused to die no matter how many times it was stepped on. The memories faded, and they were back in the bonding chamber. Both of them were breathing hard, tears streaming down their faces. Their hands were still joined, now glowing with a soft golden light that marked the completed bond. Keeper Yuna stepped back, her expression unreadable. "It is done," she said quietly. "You are bonded. May the universe have mercy on you both." The door to the chamber burst open. Emperor Kale stormed in, his wings spread wide in anger. "This is madness. Nara, you cannot possibly—" "It is done, father," Nara said, her voice stronger than it had ever been. She held up her hand, still joined with Jiwon's, showing the golden glow. "The bond is complete. Even you cannot break it now." The Emperor looked like he wanted to argue, but galactic law was absolute on this matter. He turned his anger on Jiwon instead. "You human. Do you have any idea what you have done? You have made an enemy of half the galaxy with this stunt. The Kelvins will see this as an insult. The Draxians will mock us, and you have bound yourself to a princess who has no future." Jiwon met the Emperor's gaze without flinching. Through the bond, Nara could feel his emotions. He was not afraid. "With respect, Your Majesty, I have bound myself to the person who saved 6 billion lives. Her future seems pretty bright to me." Emperor Kale's face turned a deeper shade of blue, a sign of extreme anger in Vathir. But before he could respond, Ambassador Minho entered the chamber. He looked exhausted and worried. "Your Majesty, if I may, Earth stands behind Captain Park's decision. We recognize the bond and honor it. Earth?" The Emperor spat the word like a curse. "A world barely out of its own solar system. You think your support matters?" "Perhaps not yet," Minho said carefully. "But one day it might. And when that day comes, you will want to remember that we honored your daughter when others rejected her." The Emperor stared at the ambassador for a long moment, then turned and swept out of the chamber, his wings creating a gust of wind. Most of his attendants followed, though a few stayed behind, looking at Nara with expressions she could not quite read. Keeper Yuna approached them once more. "You should rest," she told them. The bond is new and strong. It will take time to adjust to feeling each other's emotions. The palace has prepared quarters for you. As they left the chamber, still holding hands, Nara reached out through the new mental link. Can you hear me? She thought. Jiwan's surprised happiness flooded through the bond before his thoughts came back to her, awkward and uncertain. I can. This is going to take some getting used to. Despite everything, despite the anger of her father and the uncertainty of the future, Nara smiled. For the first time in her life, she was not alone. She had a partner who saw her, who chose her, who stood beside her even when the entire galaxy was watching. That night, in their shared quarters, they sat together and talked. Not through the bond, but with words, learning about each other in the normal way. Jiwan told her about Earth, about Sol and the ocean and mountains she had never seen. Nara told him about Vathir's science and art and the beauty of her world when it was not filled with politics and cruelty. Why did you really choose me? Nara asked when the conversation had grown quiet. Jiwan was quiet for a moment, thinking. When I was 10, after I lost my family, everyone looked at me with pity. They saw a broken kid. But one person, my teacher, she looked at me and saw potential. She told me I could be more than my tragedy. She believed in me when no one else did. He met Nara's eyes. When I heard about you, I heard about your accomplishments. Your brilliance. And then I saw everyone in that hall looking at you like you were broken. I thought, not again. Not if I can help it. Nara felt her eyes burn with fresh tears, but these were different. These were grateful. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For seeing me. Jiwan squeezed her hand gently. Always. Vathir Prime was more beautiful than Jiwan had imagined. The entire planet seemed to be made of crystal and light. Towers stretched toward the purple sky, their surfaces reflecting the 3 moons that orbited the world. Gardens floated in the air, suspended by technology Jiwan did not fully understand. It would have been breathtaking if not for the hostile stares he received everywhere he went. 2 weeks had passed since the bonding ceremony. In that time, Jiwan and Nara had traveled to her homeworld so he could face the trials required to be accepted as her bonded consort. The Vathir court had made it clear they did not want him there. Servants gave him the wrong directions. Guards blocked his path. Minor nobles insulted him in languages they thought he could not understand. Through the bond, Jiwan felt Nara's constant anger and frustration on his behalf, but he tried to send calm back to her. He had faced worse than rude aristocrats. The first trial was scheduled for today. Combat prowess. Jiwan stood in the preparation room checking his equipment. He wore light armor provided by the Vathir, though he suspected it was deliberately inferior to what his opponent would have. His weapon was a simple staff, traditional for the trial. His opponent would be Dayul, the Emperor's personal champion. Through the bond, he felt Nara's worry. You do not have to do this, she sent to him. We can leave. Go back to Earth and give up? Jiwan sent back. Not a chance. He could feel her smile despite the distance between them. Stubborn human, stubborn princess. Ambassador Minho entered the room, his face drawn with concern. The entire court will be watching, Jiwan. Dayul has never lost a match. He is twice your size and has enhancements that make him even stronger. They expect him to kill you. Then they will be disappointed, Jiwan said, standing and rolling his shoulders. Is there anything I should know about his fighting style? He relies on overwhelming force, charges straight ahead and crushes his opponents. But Jiwan, Minho grabbed his arm. If you die in that arena, Earth loses this alliance. Nara loses her bond. Everything we have worked for ends. Then I better not die, Jiwan said with more confidence than he felt. The arena was massive, carved from a single piece of crystal that seemed to glow from within. Thousands of Vathir filled the seats, their wings creating a sea of color and movement. At the highest point sat Emperor Kale and Princess Hana, both watching with expressions that made it clear they expected Jiwan to fail. Nara sat slightly below them, forced to watch but not permitted to interfere. Even from across the arena, Jiwan could feel her fear through the bond. Del entered from the opposite side. He was enormous, at least 7 feet tall, with muscles that looked carved from stone. His 4 wings were a deep red, spread wide to show his power. He carried a staff identical to Jiwan's, but in his massive hands it looked like a toy. The crowd roared approval as he saluted the Emperor. Jiwan walked to the center of the arena. Next to Dil, he looked small and fragile. The champion looked down at him with something like pity in his eyes. I will make it quick, human. You do not deserve to suffer for loving above your station. Appreciate the thought, Ji-won said, but I plan to make you work for it. The starting bell rang, a clear crystal tone that echoed through the arena. Dial charged immediately, exactly as Minho had predicted. The ground shook with his steps. His staff came down in a devastating overhead strike that would have crushed Ji-won's skull. Ji-won was not there. He had spent his entire military career fighting enemies who were bigger, stronger, and better armed than him. He knew how to turn strength into weakness. As Dale's staff smashed into the arena floor with enough force to crack the crystal, Ji-won was already moving to the side. He struck the champion's knee, not hard enough to injure through the armor, but enough to throw off his balance. Daeul stumbled. The crowd gasped. No one had ever made the champion stumble. The fight continued. Daeul attacked with raw power, each strike capable of ending the match instantly, but Ji-won did not let any of them connect. He moved like water, always flowing away from the attacks, using the arena's energy fields and barriers to his advantage. When Daeul charged, Ji-won led him into a barrier that shocked the champion. When Daeul tried to corner him, Ji-won used the crystal walls to vault over the massive warrior. But defense was not enough to win. Ji-won needed an opening. Through the bond, he felt Nara's tactical mind working alongside his. She had studied Daeul's fighting style for years. She sent him flashes of insight. The champion favored his right side. His wings, while beautiful, created wind resistance when he turned quickly. After his big attacks, there was always a fraction of a second delay before he could defend. Ji-won waited for his moment. Daeul charged again, staff raised for another crushing blow. This time, instead of dodging to the side, Ji-won dropped and rolled forward, directly under the attack. He came up behind the champion and struck the back of Daeul's right knee with all his strength. The armor protected the champion from serious injury, but the force was enough to drop him to one knee. Before Daeul could recover, Ji-won swept the staff around and pressed it against the champion's throat. Yield, he said quietly. The arena was completely silent. Daeul could have kept fighting. He was not truly beaten, but honor required him to recognize a winning position. Slowly, he raised one hand in the gesture of surrender. The crowd erupted. Some cheered, excited by the upset. Others shouted in anger, claiming the human had cheated somehow. Emperor Kale sat frozen on his throne, clearly not believing what he had just seen. Princess Hana looked like she had swallowed poison, but Ji-won only looked at Nara. Through the bond, he felt her pride and joy so strongly it nearly knocked him over. Her broken wings were spread as wide as they could go, and her face held the biggest smile he had ever seen. Daeul climbed to his feet. For a moment, Ji-won tensed, unsure how the champion would react to defeat. Then the massive Vathir extended his hand in the human gesture Ji-won had taught him before the match. Well fought, Captain Park, you have my respect. Ji-won shook his hand. You have mine, Champion Daeul. You are the strongest opponent I have ever faced. The second trial came 3 days later. Mental acuity. This time Princess Hana herself administered the test, and Ji-won knew immediately that something was wrong. The princess smiled too sweetly as she explained the rules. He would enter a psychic maze, a construct designed to test mental strength and problem-solving ability. All he had to do was find his way to the center and ring the bell located there. What Hana did not say, but what Nara discovered too late through her information network, was that Hana had modified the maze. She had made it far more difficult and dangerous than regulations allowed. The maze would not just test Ji-won, it would try to break his mind, and if it succeeded he would be left a vegetable, trapped in his own thoughts forever. The bond would shatter. Nara would be free to be married off to someone else, and everyone would blame the weak human for not being strong enough. Ji-won entered the maze before Nara could warn him. One moment he was in a crystal chamber with psychic amplifiers around his head, and the next he was somewhere else entirely. The world around him looked real but felt wrong. He stood on a street in Seoul, but the sky was the wrong color. The buildings were too tall, and there was smoke in the distance. His heart started pounding. He knew this memory. Figures appeared ahead of him. His mother, his father, his little sister. They were running toward him, terror on their faces. Behind them, the alien raiders from his childhood descended from the sky. "Help us!" his mother screamed. "Please, Ji-won, help us." He tried to run to them, but his feet would not move. He could only watch as the scene played out exactly as it had in real life. The raiders killed his family while he hid. Their screams echoed in his ears. This was the maze's attack. It was forcing him to relive his worst memory, to feel that helplessness again and again until his mind broke. But then he felt something warm in his mind. Nara. She had entered the psychic space with him through their bond. "I am here," she sent. "This is not real. Hold on to me." The scene shifted. Now he was in a military hospital. Bodies covered in sheets lined the hallway. These were men and women he had served with, friends he had lost on various missions. Their ghosts appeared, pointing at him accusingly. "You let us die," they said in unison. "You were supposed to protect us." Jiwon felt his mind starting to crack under the pressure. The guilt was real. He did blame himself for every person he could not save. The maze found every insecurity, every fear, every regret, and magnified them until they were unbearable. Nara's presence grew stronger. She wrapped his mind in hers, sharing her own strength with him. "Together," she sent. "We face this together." With her help, Jiwon pushed back. He forced himself to remember that these were not real. They were constructs designed to hurt him, and more than that, he realized something. This maze was not just attacking him. Through the bond, it was attacking Nara too. And that made him angry. He stopped running. He turned to face the nightmares the maze threw at him. "You are not real," he said aloud. "And even if you were, I have already survived you once. I can do it again." The maze shuddered. It had not expected resistance. It doubled its efforts, showing him Nara's memories now. Her sister pushing her down. Her father's disappointment. Years of cruelty and rejection. But Jiwon did not let these visions break him. Instead, he held them gently. The third trial was announced the morning after Jiwon survived the psychic maze. Emperor Kale stood before the assembled court, his face grave and his wings held in a rigid formal position. Princess Hana sat to his right, recovered from her ordeal, but notably subdued. She refused to meet anyone's eyes. The court knew she had modified the maze, though no formal charges had been filed. The emperor was protecting his favorite daughter, but his disappointment in her was obvious to everyone. The third trial, the emperor announced, tests the quality most important in a bonded consort: loyalty. Captain Park must choose where his true devotion lies. Jiwon stood in the center of the court chamber, Nara beside him. Through their bond, he felt her sudden spike of anxiety. She knew her father. This would not be a simple test. "We have received a distress signal from the human colony on Kepler Station," Emperor Kale continued. "The station is under attack by unknown forces. Casualties are mounting. The nearest human military ship is 3 days away. However, Captain Park, your ship is only 6 hours distant. You have the capability to reach them and potentially save lives." Jiwon's blood ran cold. His ship, the Horizon, was docked at Vathir Prime with a skeleton crew. They could be ready to launch within an hour. "How many people are on Kepler Station?" he asked. "Approximately 300,000 humans," an advisor read from a datapad. "Early reports suggest the attackers are overwhelming the station's defenses. Without immediate help, the entire population may be lost." Nara gripped Jiwon's arm. She could feel his anguish through the bond. 300,000 people. Men, women, children, families like the one he had lost as a child. "However," Emperor Kale said, and his voice carried a note of cruel satisfaction, "tomorrow is the ceremony of unity, the final bonding rite. If you are not present, the bond will be declared incomplete. You will be expelled from Vathir Prime and barred from ever returning. Your bond with my daughter will be dissolved." The trap was perfect. If Jiwon stayed, he secured the alliance between Earth and the Vathir Empire, but 300,000 humans would likely die. If he left, he might save those people, but Earth would lose its most important diplomatic relationship. And Nara would be alone again, subject to whatever political marriage her father arranged next. "This is insane," Ambassador Minho protested from the crowd. "You cannot ask him to choose between his people's lives and his bond." "I can and I have," Emperor Kale said flatly. "This is the trial, loyalty. Does his loyalty lie with his bonded partner and his adopted world, or with his birth people? A true consort must be willing to put his bonded partner above all else." Jiwon looked at Nara. Her golden eyes were filled with tears, but her face was set with determination. Through the bond, they did not need to speak. They both knew what he had to do. I need to go, Ji-won said quietly. I am sorry. Do not apologize, Nara said, her voice steady despite the tears running down her face. You are the man I bonded with because you save people. If you stayed and let them die, you would not be that man anymore. Go. The bond, I will handle the bond. I will handle my father. I will handle the politics. She took his face in her hands. You taught me that worth is not defined by others. You showed me that I am more than what they see. Now let me show you that I am strong enough to stand alone. Go save your people. Ji-won felt like his heart was being torn in half, but she was right. Those were his people crying out for help. He could not abandon them, no matter the cost. He kissed her forehead gently, then turned to Ambassador Minho. Contact the Horizon. Tell them to prepare for immediate departure. As Ji-won left the chamber, he felt Nara's emotions through the bond. Sadness, yes, but also pride and love. She believed in him. Even knowing it might cost her everything, she believed in him. The Horizon launched an hour later. Ji-won stood on the bridge, coordinating with his crew as they jumped to faster-than-light travel. The journey to Kepler Station would take 6 hours. 6 hours to plan, 6 hours to pray they arrived in time, and 6 hours to feel Nara's presence in his mind slowly growing more distant as the space between them increased. Back on Vather Prime, Nara stood before her father's throne. The entire court had assembled again, eager to see what would happen now that the human had failed his trial. Emperor Kale looked satisfied. Your bonded partner has abandoned you, daughter. He chose his own people over you. The bond will be dissolved at dawn. No, Nara said. Her voice was not loud, but it carried through the chamber with absolute certainty. No, her father repeated, his wings flaring. You dare refuse? The law is clear. If he is not present for the ceremony of unity, the bond is incomplete. The law is clear, Nara agreed. But the spirit of the law is what matters. You designed this trial to make him fail. You put him in an impossible position. Any person with a conscience would have made the same choice he did. Then he failed the test of loyalty. He passed it. Nara's voice rose, and for the first time in her life, she let her anger show fully. He showed loyalty to the values that make him worthy. You asked if his loyalty lies with me or with his people. The answer is both, because I would never ask him to let innocents die to prove his devotion to me. That is not loyalty. That is selfishness. Princess Hana laughed from her seat. Listen to her defend the human who abandoned her. Pathetic. Nara turned to her sister, her broken wings spreading as wide as they could. You have no right to speak, sister. You tried to kill Ji-won in the maze. You modified the psychic trial to break his mind. Should we discuss your loyalty? Or should we discuss the other things I have uncovered about you? Hana's face went pale. What are you talking about? I am talking about the assassination attempts on my life over the years. I always assumed they came from minor nobles or foreign enemies, but I started investigating after the maze incident. Nara pulled out a data pad and held it up. 7 attempts. 7 times someone tried to kill me, and every single one can be traced back to you, dear sister. You hired the assassins. You arranged the accidents. You wanted me dead so you could be the only princess. The court erupted in shocked whispers. Emperor Kale stood from his throne, his face a mask of fury and disbelief. Hana, is this true? She is lying, Hana shouted. She is just angry because her human abandoned her. She wants to— I have proof, Nara interrupted. She activated the data pad, and holographic records appeared in the air above the court. Financial transactions, coded messages, security footage. Everything carefully documented and cross-referenced. Nara had spent every moment since Ji-won left gathering this evidence. You paid assassins through shell companies. You bribed security guards to allow them access to my quarters. You even tried to poison me during the Festival of Stars last year. The Emperor stared at the evidence, then at Hana, his perfect daughter, his pride and joy. This cannot be, he whispered. It is, Keeper Yuna said from the back of the chamber. She stepped forward, her ancient face sad. I have verified Princess Nara's evidence. It is genuine. Princess Hana has violated our most sacred laws. Attempting to murder a member of the royal family is treason. Hana stood suddenly, her wings flaring in panic. She looked around the chamber, seeing the condemnation in every face. Even those who had supported her looked away. Father, please. I did it for our family. Nara is a disgrace. Her broken wings shame us all. I was trying to protect our legacy. By murdering your sister. The Emperor's voice was cold and terrible. Guards! Arrest her. As guards moved forward to take Hana into custody, she fought and screamed. "This is her fault! The broken princess and her worthless human. They are destroying everything." But no one listened. Hana was dragged from the chamber, still shouting accusations. The court sat in stunned silence. Finally, Emperor Kale turned back to Nara. His expression was complex, mixing shame, pride, and something like respect. "You have grown strong, daughter," he said quietly. "Stronger than I realized." "I had a good teacher," Nara replied. "Jiwan showed me that I do not need to be perfect to be worthy. I just need to be true to myself." "About the bond," the Emperor began. "The bond stands," Nara said firmly. Jiwan passed his trial. He made the choice any honorable person would make. He chose to save lives. "If you dissolve our bond for that, you prove that Vathir honor means nothing." The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he nodded slowly. "The bond stands. When Captain Park returns, if he returns, we will complete the ceremony of unity. But Nara, you must understand. By taking this stand, you have made enemies. There are many in this court who believe humans are beneath us. They will not forget this. Let them remember," Nara said. "Let them remember that the broken princess found her strength. And let them remember that a human taught her how." 6 hours later, the horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Kepler Station. What they found was not what they expected. The station was intact. There were no attackers. No damage, no casualties. Security scans showed normal operations. 300,000 colonists going about their daily lives, completely unaware that a rescue mission had been launched. "Sir," his communications officer said, her voice confused. "We are receiving a message from Kepler Station. They have no idea why we are here. There has been no attack." Jiwan stared at the stat. 6 months had passed since Jiwan and Nara completed their bonding. The time had been peaceful, almost surprisingly so. The alliance between Earth and the Vathir Empire was growing stronger every day. Human scientists worked alongside Vathir engineers. Trade routes opened between their worlds. Cultural exchange programs brought young people from both civilizations together. It was everything Earth had hoped for when they sent Jiwan to that ceremony. But peace never lasted forever. Jiwan stood on the bridge of the horizon, reviewing reports with a growing sense of unease. 3 human colony ships had disappeared in the past month. Not destroyed, just gone. No distress signals. No wreckage. One day they were there, the next day they had vanished. And now another colony, New Sydney, was reporting strange ships in their system. Ships that matched Kelvin design, the Kelvins. The same species whose ambassador had been the first to reject Nara at the bonding ceremony. The same empire that considered humans to be primitive and worthless. Jiwan had a bad feeling about this. Through their bond, he felt Nara's attention. She was in the intelligence center on Vathir Prime, dozens of light years away. But the bond kept them connected. "What is wrong?" she sent. "I think the Kelvins are attacking our colonies," Jiwan replied. "But they are being careful." No survivors, no evidence. Nara's anger flowed through the bond. "Let me investigate. I will find proof." Over the next few days, Nara used her extensive intelligence network to dig into Kelvin activities. What she found was worse than they had feared. The Kelvins had been planning this for months, ever since the bonding ceremony. They saw Earth's alliance with the Vathir as an insult. How dare a primitive species gain such a powerful friend? The Kelvin High Command had decided to teach humanity a lesson. They would destroy human colonies one by one until Earth begged for mercy, and they were using proxy forces and cover operations to hide their involvement. But Nara's greatest discovery was even more alarming. The Kelvins were not just targeting random colonies. They were gathering intelligence and resources for a full invasion of Earth itself. They planned to strike within 2 months, overwhelming Earth's defenses before the Vathir could respond. In their arrogance, the Kelvins believed humans were too weak to matter. They believed one swift strike would erase humanity from galactic politics forever. Nara brought the evidence to her father immediately. She stood before his throne, data pads in hand. Her broken wings spread with determination. "Father, the Kelvins are planning genocide. We must act." Emperor Kale reviewed the evidence carefully. His expression grew darker with each document. Finally, he set the pads aside and looked at his daughter with regret. "I cannot help you." "What?" Nara felt like she had been struck. "But the evidence is clear. They are planning to exterminate an entire species. The humans are our allies. And the Kelvins are also powerful," the Emperor said wearily. "If I send the Vathir fleet to defend Earth, We will be declaring war on the Kelvin Empire. That war would spread across the galaxy. Billions would die. I cannot risk our people for the sake of one primitive world, even if that world is bonded to my daughter. So you will just let them die? Nara's voice shook with fury and disbelief. I will offer Earth asylum. Any humans who wish to evacuate can come to Vathir space. We will give them sanctuary, but I will not go to war. Nara stared at her father, seeing him clearly for the first time. He was not a monster. He was just a politician, making what he thought was the practical choice. But practicality without courage was just cowardice dressed in fancy words. Then I renounce my claim to the throne, Nara said quietly. The court, which had been listening silently, erupted in shocked whispers. The emperor stood from his throne. Nara, do not be foolish. You cannot throw away your future for what? For people who matter? Nara's voice was cold. You are right, father. I cannot throw away my future, but I can choose it, and I choose to stand with the humans. Jiwan asked me to bond with him when no one else would. He saw me, he valued me. He taught me that worth is not given by birth or perfect wings. It is earned through action. Now I will act. If you leave, you can never come back, the emperor warned. You will be exiled. I know. Nara turned and walked from the throne room. She did not look back. Within hours, word spread through the Vathir court. The broken princess had chosen humanity over her own people. Some called her a traitor. Others called her a fool. But a few, a precious few, called her brave. Among those few was Keeper Yuna, the ancient elder who had performed the bonding ceremony. She came to Nara's quarters as the princess packed her belongings. You are making a terrible mistake, Yuna said, but her eyes were kind. I am making the only choice I can live with, Nara replied. I know. That is why I am coming with you. Yuna smiled at Nara's shocked expression. Did you think you were the only one tired of politics and cowardice? I am old. I would like to spend my remaining years doing something that matters. They were not alone. Several younger Vathir nobles, inspired by Nara's courage, also volunteered to join her. Not many, perhaps 20 in total, but each one was a skilled pilot or engineer or tactician. They would not turn the tide of battle on their own, but they would help. Even more surprising, a message came from Ambassador Minho. He had spread word of the Kelvan threat through his diplomatic channels. 3 other species, smaller empires that had also been bullied by the Kelvans, sent small fleets to help defend Earth. They remembered their own struggles against bigger powers. They understood what it meant to stand against overwhelming odds. Jiwan met Nara when her ship docked at Earth's orbital defense station. He pulled her into a tight embrace. You did not have to give up your throne for us, he said. Yes, I did, Nara replied. You showed me who I want to be. Now let me be that person. The preparations for Earth's defense consumed the next 2 weeks. G1 commanded the human fleet. Nara coordinated intelligence and strategy. Together, through their bond, they worked as a perfect team. His tactical instincts combined with her strategic brilliance created battle plans that maximized Earth's limited resources. But everyone knew the truth. When the Kelvin armada arrived, they would be outnumbered 10-1. The Kelvins had 300 warships, each one more advanced than anything humanity possessed. Earth's entire defense fleet consisted of 40 human ships, 20 Vathir volunteers, and small contingents from 3 minor species. It would not be enough. They could hurt the Kelvins. They could make them pay for every meter of space. But they could not win. Nara worked 16-hour days searching for any advantage. She studied Kelvin military doctrine. She analyzed their ship designs for weaknesses. She coordinated with human engineers to upgrade Earth's defensive satellites. And late at night, when exhaustion forced her to rest, she lay awake thinking about her father's choice. He could have helped. He had the power to stop this. But he chose safety over justice. The Kelvin armada arrived on a Tuesday morning. 300 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. They came in perfect formation, confident and overwhelming. Their commander broadcast a message to Earth that was both an ultimatum and an insult. Surrender immediately or be exterminated. Humanity had 1 hour to decide. Earth's answer was simple. Every defense platform, every ship, every orbital weapon powered up and prepared to fight. They would not surrender. They would not beg. If they were going to die, they would die with dignity. The battle began at noon. The Kelvin fleet advanced in a massive wedge formation, their shields shimmering with power. Earth's fleet moved to intercept, knowing they were flying into death but refusing to back down. The first exchange of fire lit up space with terrible beauty. Human missiles and railgun shots splashed against Kelvin shields. Kelvin plasma beams cut through human ships like paper. But Earth's defenders had learned from every fight humanity had ever fought. They did not try to match the Kelvins in firepower. Instead, they used speed and unpredictability. Human fighters swarmed like angry wasps, targeting the same shield points repeatedly until they failed. The Vathir volunteers used their advanced sensors to identify weak spots in the Kelvin formation. The smaller alien fleets provided covering fire, protecting human ships as they made desperate attack runs. Jiwan led his squadron in a crazy maneuver that should have been impossible. They dove into the heart of the Kelvin formation, dodged between capital ships and dropped mines directly against the hull of the enemy flagship. The resulting explosion crippled the ship and threw the Kelvin formation into confusion. Nara, coordinating from the defense station, saw the opening immediately. She redirected 3 battle groups to exploit the gap. Human and Vathir ships poured through, spreading chaos through the Kelvin ranks. But the Kelvins adapted quickly. They reformed their lines and began a methodical advance. Earth's defenders fought brilliantly, but there were simply too many enemy ships. One by one, human vessels fell. The orbital defense platforms were destroyed. The Kelvin fleet pushed closer to Earth itself, preparing to bombard the planet. In the command center, Nara felt despair trying to take hold. They had fought so well. They had hurt the Kelvins badly, but it was not enough. Through the bond, she felt Jiwan's grim determination. He was preparing,